On behalf of everyone present here, we extend our sincere gratitude to Mr. Rajesh Agrawal, Deputy Mayor of London, for his insightful and inspiring opening address. His valuable perspectives on the intersection of innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability in London have set the stage for a thought-provoking discussion to follow. For our panel discussion, we have assembled a group of distinguished experts who will shed light on the transformative power of innovation, the role of entrepreneurship in driving economic prosperity, and the imperative of sustainability in ensuring a harmonious balance between business and the planet. Together, they will explore how these elements intersect and shape the trajectory of the global economy, presenting both challenges and immense opportunities. Let me introduce to you our young and vibrant speakers. We have Mr. Gautam Shroff, Managing Director and Head ICG Nuvama Group. Having studied from the prestigious Harvard Business School, Mr. Shroff has immense experience and is a young leader in the finance service industry. We have Ms. Ananya Birla, an artist and business person. She is an accomplished singer and is the first Indian artist with an English language single to go platinum in India. She is the founder of Swatantra Financial Services with a GLP of $1 billion. She also serves on the board of the Aditya Birla Group, involved in the strategic direction in Birla Estates, Aditya Birla Global Trading, Aditya Birla Capital, amongst others. Joining them, we also have Ms. Ishita Sawant, CEO founder of Meolaa, a company that aims to define the future of shopping by curating products that resonate with the values of the next generation shoppers. Ms. Ishita Sawant, in 2021, earned her bachelor's in International Business Marketing from Northeastern University in Boston. It is indeed a pleasure to have you all in our company, and to moderate this panel, we have Dr. Paroma Bhattacharya, an LSE Fellow in Management at the London School of Economics and Political Science, serving as a teaching faculty for MSc Social Innovation and Entrepreneurship program. Her research, work, and field experience in the domain of social innovation and international development spans across 10 years and several countries, including India, the UK, Denmark, Sri Lanka, and Kenya. So without further ado, please give a huge round of applause and welcome our speakers and our moderator, Dr. Paroma Bhattacharya.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the kind welcome, and thank you for the Young Leaders Forum for organizing this very important topic. I think it's a very important topic to discuss with young change makers, students, future leaders who are going to shape the economy going forward. And we're very lucky to have three very esteemed panelists with us here today who can draw from their diverse range of experiences to comment on this important theme. So before we start the panel discussion, I'd like to start with a few opening remarks to frame the conversation for today. So the panel topic reminded me of the concept of donut economics. A lot of you might be familiar with the best-selling book, Donut Economics, 7 Ways to Think Like a 21st Century Economist. So it's written by Professor Kate Raworth, who's based at the University of Oxford. And the book basically talks about that how we need to provide basic living amenities and human rights to every section of society while working within the planetary boundaries. But in the old economy or the current economy, we're basically overshooting the planetary boundaries. We're using a lot of resources, but still being unable to fulfill the basic human rights and living amenities to several sections of society. This is primarily because current business models or current economic approaches are quite extractive and degenerative, using a lot of resources of the planet, and also being divisive in terms of not giving equal opportunity to everyone and giving opportunities to people who have privilege or access. So what we need is to transform into the new age of the global economy. We need to move from being extractive to being regenerative and to being sustainable in order to not only reduce environmental risks, but also create environmental benefits and restore natural balance. And we need to move from being divisive to being distributive and equitable and inclusive so that value and opportunities can be co-created and shared with all. So how can we do this? Through innovation, entrepreneurship, sustainability, all the wonderful topics that we're going to talk about today. And so with that segue, I'll open with the first question to the panel. So from your unique experience and perspectives, how do you think sustainable and inclusive solutions can be created for social and environmental challenges? So maybe we can start with Gautam and then we can move this way.
Thank you for having me here. It is very exciting to see so many of the youth present here. And it's a very pride moment for our country of what has happened. We've seen UPI succeed, so I'm talking more on digital infrastructure. And if you guys are aware and with this term called JAM Trinity. So when I say JAM, M stands for mobile, A stands for Aadhaar, and J stands for Jandhan. So that's the term, and it's become very popular of late, and that has actually made our country progress and transform in a very big way. With the onset of COVID, everybody was sitting at home, we were still working. Commerce was on, stock markets were on, bank transactions were on. We did not have to stop the clock. It was a very defining moment for the world, but we came out with flying colors. So very, very proud moment for our country. And Rajesh just spoke about London being a fintech leader. I think we are second to none or probably equal to London today. In fact, many of my counterparts in Canada and in the United States tell me that, the progress India has made and delivered in fintech is far superior. Your banking system is far superior than ours. Your transaction system is far superior than ours. So as regards transformation is concerned, I think UPI and the JAM Trinity is a very pride moment for our country.
Thank you.
That's very interesting, Gautam, because I was here when I landed. I tried to do a couple of UPI transactions for back home and it didn't work. But I'll just draw from my experience as a young entrepreneur starting off straight from college, right? I think it starts at the idea stage. Today, we as Gen Z and probably young millennials have access to information worldwide, right? So we know there are Australian bushfires happening or a certain species of animals, very close to getting extinct. And all of this information kind of prompts us to think about problems that are there in the world to solve, right? Very relevant real world problems. So I think it starts there for the new generation of entrepreneurs or anyone entering the workforce for that matter of fact. I think from the idea stage, getting into the belief stage comes to the network effects and the ecosystem, right? India has a very thriving startup ecosystem and larger corporate ecosystem too, which founders, entrepreneurs, investors are very happy to validate and vet one's ideas. And from an idea, then it becomes a belief system. So that transition is something that our country is enabled very well for the next generation. And then, of course, post that, jumping into the conviction stage is when you start kind of putting a team together, start working on a certain idea and going into execution phase. So I think overall, as a country, we've developed a very strong ecosystem and leveraged on the digitization that's happened in the country for a particular entrepreneur, and for that matter of fact, even a young entrepreneur to go from idea to conviction stage and start building in the real world. So that's something I find interesting. From an industry perspective, I feel like all industries have potential. We started off with fintech. There's a lot of work happening in AI in the country now, and EVs and electrical mobility. And I feel like there's an ecosystem for everything. It's first going to come down to how do we prompt young people to become entrepreneurs and take that plunge in the first place.
Wonderful. Ananya?
Yeah, a big thank you for having me here, and it's so lovely to see all of you sitting here today. Super interesting question, and I think we can talk for hours and hours about this. My take would be, I think, similar to what both of you all said, is of course a financial model being economically reliable is extremely important. However, I think the fact that all of you all are just here today for a topic like this, I can be quite certain that having an impact in this world beyond just economic gain is something that matters to all of you. So I think coming up with more ideas they have to be sustainable, right? You have to have a business plan. A business has to be sustainable. It has to be profitable. However, is it scalable? Will it last? Will it last the years? Is it flexible enough? With changing times, but also what sort of an impact does it actually have in the world? What am I solving with what I'm creating right now, with the resources that I have? What is the problem in the world that I'm solving? And I think I see some beautiful ideas coming in, and I think we just have to believe in ourselves and just go for it. So when I was 17, I started this microfinance company with 10,000 rupees at that time. And the idea was that I personally felt that the people who actually needed money in India just didn't have access to money because they didn't have physical collateral to give to banks, right? And people like my family who actually don't need money would get money very easily. So there was a lot of guilt that I felt. I didn't quite understand it. So what I basically did was I got into the shoes of my clients and I said that for them, losing a bike, in case they don't repay a loan as physical collateral wouldn't matter as much as having a bad reputation. So we created something called social collateral. So we started with lending to women in groups, and every woman takes guarantee for the other woman, and then we give them a loan. And this loan, 70% of the amount of this loan, of the principal, has to be used for an income-generating activity. So what eventually started happening was these women started becoming self-sufficient. So the problem that I was trying to solve in my own small way was financial inclusion. Is how do we bring people into the formal economy? And so that was the crux. And then, of course, with digitization, like you said, you kind of need to keep changing the model. So we made sure that everything is paperless, everything, it's cashless. So yeah, I mean, if you have an idea that is economically viable, sustainable, scalable, but has a huge impact on this world, I like to say a business with a heart, then you must pursue that idea. Because it'll count and it'll make a big, so that's what I would say.
Thank you for all the reflections. I love the discussion about problems. A thing we talk about a lot in class is being married to the problem that you want to solve and not the solution. Because the solution will evolve and iterate over the years based on feedback, but you really have to be passionate about the problem that you want to address. So we heard a lot of very interesting things about the fintech revolution, the digital revolution, idea to belief to conviction stage, social collateral. So how do we make this shift happen? How can the gap between traditional business models and the new age of the global economy be bridged? Maybe we can start this way.
Yeah.
Ananya.
So this is something that it's like almost like a little bit of a daily struggle for me, because on one end, we're running a conglomerate, so processes are very set. There are certain guidelines that are there, and they've been there since years. And on the other end, there are a bunch of new businesses that I have started, 10 years ago. I mean, I'm still starting them, which are agile, more flexible. We employ people who are younger. So I think what I've learned is there's no right or wrong way of going about doing it, but there's a beautiful balance that can be achieved. So in the conglomerate setting, for every, three or four people who are above a certain age, I recruit someone who's a little bit younger as well. So, things like that really help to balance. It could be anything. It could be risk-taking. It could be experience. So I think it's really important to bring different sort of people together, different age groups together. To be open-minded is also really important. When I walk into a room, I always consider that everyone in that room is way more intelligent and knows way more than I do. And that just really helps me to stay open-minded and learn from other people. So I think having and I say this to my team all the time, that I think it's really important and my great granddad, when anyone used to ask him, what do you do? He always used to say, I'm a student. And I think it's really important that we continue to learn for the rest of our lives in whatever way that may be. And I think that's probably one way in which we can address this gap between traditional businesses and new age digitization.
Yeah, I think I echo those thoughts. At the core, all businesses are trying to create value, right? Value or impact in some form or the other. I think with new generation businesses, however, we're seeing a lot more network effects being leveraged, where there's a lot more collaboration, there's a lot more openness, especially to parts of business which are not your core. So in the case of Meolaa, we're an e-commerce platform. Our main focus and everything that we do in-house is all to build trust with our consumers, because that's what we're solving for, and that's the gap we identified in the market. When it comes to other things such as logistics, fulfillment, all convenience-related subjects, we choose to stand on the shoulders of giants which exist out there, which comes down to large logistics partners like a Blue Dart or banking, payment gateway partners, etc. So I think that's something that's interesting. You have APIs in technology, you have partner programs, etc. That's something to learn from new generation businesses. I think from traditional businesses, given the state of the current startup ecosystem, there's definitely a change, but making profits. That's something we need to learn about because I think over the last couple of years, there was a slight shift and it probably didn't end up too well. And now people are going back and seeing, one, does a business require VC funding, right? Because not all businesses are compatible with VC funding. Two, is there a more cost-effective, sustainable way of building this business? And three, what's the value proposition we're even creating, which comes down to the problem question. So I think there's a lot of learning, but from new generation business perspective, network effects, how can we work together to collaborate and kind of accelerate our growth? And from a traditional business perspective, there's a lot of basic unit economics learning that can happen because someone's done what you've done in a different way and form in the past, which you can learn from. So that's what I think.
I think when it comes to traditional businesses, the first three words that come to my mind is roti, kapda, makan. This is what India did. This is what everybody, either you're a builder, either you're a cloth merchant. So that was traditional business to me. But come in today's age, I think even a DJ, if you make a mark, you can make much more money than a small-time builder back home. Sports, corporate houses like yourselves and others, you mentioned a very nice thing that you give credit to the unbanked, first-time credit. So, continuing the theme of digital infrastructure, this is something that naturally happened to our country. All KYCs got done because you got your Aadhaar card in place. And once you have an Aadhaar, you don't need a KYC, or your Aadhaar number is your KYC. So, that has accelerated. So there's no need actually to think the traditional way, I feel. One can look at sports. A lot of Indian corporate houses, the large conglomerates have started buying teams, sponsoring sports. Football was practically unknown. Today, it's making a mark. Hopefully, we'll have a team soon. I'm praying for that. So there are a lot of new avenues. One has to think out of the box. And let's look at management institutes. I think today a sports MBA is available. 10 years back, 20 years back, nobody even thought that, you could go and do something in luxury, something in sports management. So one has to think a little out of the box, and we are aligning to the Western world. So I think there's huge and immense opportunity in newer businesses, and one doesn't really have to think about traditional. There's enough and more support. Last point I'll make here is you don't have to be a very, very large corporation for actually going IPO, like raising money from the stock market. Today, there's an SME exchange that has opened, small, medium enterprise. You can raise something as small as 2 crores, 5 crores by going public. So as you said, you should have a solid business plan. It has to have a mass appeal, and then you have to be true to it. And money is not a constraint anymore, is the point I'm trying to make. So there's one message today, if I have to give to the youth sitting here, is don't think of doing a job. please try and be an entrepreneur. There's enough and more support available back home.
Yes, wonderful points. I think great points about balancing between what we can learn from traditional business, but also learning and crafting new generation, and like having balance between being flexible, agile, diversity, thinking out of the box, and then championing entrepreneurship, definitely. So on that note, what role do you think innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability that they can play in creating equal opportunities for all sections of society? So Ishita, maybe we can start from you this time.
So I think I strongly believe it plays a huge role. I graduated from university in 2021 December, and I'd raised my first round of funding while at university. I basically had an investor put a check on the table and say, drop out or graduate early. So I strongly believe that, there's a lot of opportunity, and as Gautam mentioned, consider being an entrepreneur, right? It's difficult in the beginning. And I've learned this in the last 1.5 years. Knowledge is collected in drops, but leveraged as like a fountain or like an ocean, because you can have a blocker for let's say 1 year, which I did very honestly. The last 1 year for the funding environment was extremely bad and dry, and that's around the time we started off. And we realized there's not going to be access to capital like there was before, and we had to probably run a little longer on the funds that we had raised. And then now, maybe in the last 2 months, we realized why we went through what we did for the last 1 year, right? Because things opened up. We'd built our business fundamentally very right. We were focused on sustainability, which we were at the core. We were focused on building a very strong, agile team. I'm the youngest member in my team. Everyone's probably at least 1/3 older than I am. But I understand that they're subject matter experts. My goal is to essentially ensure they're aligned to my vision. So yeah, it's not all about capital. It's just about building fundamentally right, and everything that you mentioned, innovation. Innovation doesn't necessarily need to be building a staircase to the moon, right? It can just be solving simple business problems that you're facing today. It does not have to be technology enabled. It does not have to be AI, ML, or any of that fancy stuff. It could just be a simple process change, right? So really thinking of things ground level, thinking of how are you creating value for whoever your customer may be, leveraging innovation, leveraging the true values of entrepreneurship, and then of course sustainability today is imperative. A couple months ago we had HUL, which is a large, very old company, approach us as a 1.5-year-old startup saying that we want to list our products on Meolaa, which was a wake-up call for us that, okay, we're onto something really big, and somehow we needed HUL to tell us that. So I think building on the core values of business, staying at it, is extremely important.
Thank you. Gautam?
So I would say, I think corporate India will play a massive role here. I'll give you an example. So everybody talks about circular economy, recycling, sustainability. Now, let's look at the top 5 developers of our country, be it DLF, Godrej, Birla's. Today you go, try and book a flat, try and book an apartment. The first question, the first filter run, and in anybody's advertisement or the buyer's mind is this ESG compliant? Is it green? Is the project green? Has this won a green building award? This is about builder. Let's come to batteries. So I'll take name of a very popular company back home called Amaraja Batteries, Exide Industries. They are very, very large battery suppliers, OEMs back home. So till about today, -3 years, you could dump a battery in your backyard, in your garage. But these companies came up with rules. Till you don't return the battery back to me, I'm not selling another new one to you. So they want responsibility at the dealer level that this battery is just not going in a dump yard, which is going to be poisonous and which will harm the environment. So corporate India making these rules tighter, listening to the voices and caring about the environment is really going to matter. So these were the 2 examples that I could think of. And I think corporate India will, the big boys have to step in. As far as funding is concerned, You go for a loan, say it's available at 9%. The minute you say, I want to raise a green bond, it's available at 7%. So they incentivize you straight away, 2% difference, which is huge for somebody starting new or embarking their journey. So corporate India plays a massive and a big role. I think the journey begins from there.
Thank you. Ananya?
No, lovely points made. I agree with everything. I think, sustainability is, what we need. Our planet needs it. We're nothing without our planet. So, that goes without saying. It's of utmost importance. And innovation, I think I agree. It doesn't have to be something really fancy. I know AI is like really taking off now, and we're in a space where we're not really sure of what skills are going to be redundant in the next couple of years. We're in that pool. But it can be the simplest of things, and as long as you're adding some sort of value to your client that a competitor is not adding, you're fine. And this doesn't have to be just monetary. It could be anything. And I think that spark needs to come from within you. It has to be something that you're really passionate about, that you can stand up and talk to in front of anybody and feel confident. It all starts with you. So as long as you believe in yourself and you believe in your idea, I think you're good. So yeah, of course, I think innovation is also very important because all of us as individuals are unique. We're SKUs, right? And so what actually, I think what I'm trying to say is that it's really important to be who you are, and that showcases in your business as well, because you're unique. There's no one else like you in this world. And therefore, innovation becomes that much more important. And that's why it's so important to be yourself. And so when it comes to your business ideas as well, follow what you are truly passionate about, not what you may think your dad will be proud of, or your mom will be proud of, or the world will be proud of. Because at the end of the day, it all boils down to you and yourself and what you believe in.
Beautiful points. I love what you started with, is knowledge is collected in drops but leveraged as a fountain, and innovation being a means to an end, and the end is creating value and creating impact. Great point about corporate India sort of leading the way, setting the tone, and paving the path for others to follow suit, and being authentic in the innovation and bringing yourself into it. I think now we have to open to the audience. So we have time for, I think, 2 questions from the audience. Any questions for... Yes? So please ask the question. You, yes, in the green. Clear, short question, and if it's to the whole panel, please say, or it can be to a particular speaker.
Hello, everyone. My name is Riddhi Vishwanathan. I'm a former student leader, Manchester graduate, and I'm an edtech entrepreneur myself. So very, very interesting panel. So in my journey as an entrepreneur, perhaps I must say the hardest challenge was building traction and engaging your audience. So I'd like to know from all of you, in fact, in terms of what has been your approach to building that traction and communicating your solution to your audience. Thank you.
I think with Meolaa, at least what we identified was that Gen Z and young millennials, who are our target audience, so step 1 is identifying your target audience, and within that even sub-audiences, right? And what are they looking for? What we identified was that Gen Z and young millennials were craving very authentic experiences. If you look at it as a generation also, Gen Z and young millennials have become fairly asset light. They don't want to buy homes, they don't want to buy cars, they want to travel, they want to invest in experiences in themselves and upskilling. So we realized that our experience needed to be a notch above or much, much better than the rest. And mind you, we were competing with like Amazon and Flipkart, right? So we started investing a lot in creating a very good customer experience, and that started from how our homepage looked, to how our social media was built, to even our checkout process, our customer support, every single place. And we had a beta testing phase where that experience didn't exist. We saw the data there, and then when we took the feedback and built on it, we saw the data after, right? So I think traction is not something we should be running behind. We need to be running behind at least in the 0 to 1 phase to build a product that users love. and then the traction starts to follow, because you may invest in performance, ads, etc., Google, Meta, it's a black hole, and then you don't have a loyal customer base on the platform that's coming back and becoming spokespeople for you. So yeah, we chose to invest in experiences, and I feel like that's what the generation is looking for.
Yeah, so if I can just add, I totally agree. And it's a very, don't feel alone in what you're feeling, because it's a very common, challenge. Given that, I'm in the arts and in business, I think for my personal brand, I sort of used to struggle with that. I think what really works is initially finding a niche, and then building good content / a product around that niche. So people want to follow you or engage with you for that niche. And that way then, and we have to stay consistent with it. And then of course now we have so much data that you just take, you just believe the data, and you just, what's working is working, and you stay consistent for a while. Once that's done and you feel like you have a loyal enough customer base, I think then you can start adding a little bit of variation to see what people are liking, what people are not liking. But initially, I think you need to have a niche that people want to engage with you for. And having good content is, I think, extremely, extremely important.
I would put it this way. First of all, I agree with both my co-panelists. Very important points made. We were struggling. See, we are in the business of wealth management. So 8-10 years back, when we were starting our wealth management in India is just 10 or 15 years old. In Europe, it is about 200 years old. Like Napoleon Bonaparte had a wealth manager 200 years back, right? So it's a new business. So we were thinking, how do we approach? How will we build trust? Why will people entrust their money with us? So we pivoted around education. We went and told people that, okay, where do you invest your money? So 90% of the people's answer was, so Asians and Indians love gold and fixed deposits. Now, who are these wealthy people? They are usually north of 45, 50. So to go and tell him that, you're doing something wrong, it required a lot of guts. But we went and educated them that suppose you go and keep a fixed deposit of 1 crore of a rupee, say you're earning 5% or 7%, whatever the bank rate that time going on is. You pay tax, what do you get? 4% net or 3.8%. You are actually becoming poorer. Your money is not growing. And most people were in a state of shock. I said, you make a fixed deposit and you're becoming poorer. And around that, and immediately you're like, okay, then what do we do? And that's where, bespoke solutions, custom made to clients came in. But we still didn't answer the question why he's becoming poorer. A 15-minute meeting became a 1.5-hour meeting. We became family to them. We became their wealth managers. Only because we went and educated them that fixed deposit is a traditional way. You need to diversify. You need to look at other products which at least give you 15-20%, because inflation in our country is 7 and 9%. And India still has some informal economy. So inflation in real terms is double digit and not single digit. That's where, so education is something, to answer your question, is we began our journey with. And of course, communication, as you said, is very, very important.
Excellent insights drawing on your personal experience. And to echo that, it's really about getting into the mind of your users and customers, understanding what are their pains, what keeps them up at night, what are their aspirations, and helping them to bridge those gaps. Question from the gentleman in blue. Yes.
Hi, my name is Divij, and I'm a first-year university student. So I was just wondering, startups and the entrepreneurship, what do you say, flag and everything is huge right now in India, in the world, especially with Shark Tank as well. So I was wondering, how do you actually come up with a problem, and what are the things you look at in a market? Do you want to make your product cheap? Do you want to make it accessible? Do you want to make it innovative? What all do you think when you come up with a problem, and how do you actually get to a problem to start a startup? Thank you.
Excellent question. Start with Ananya.
Yeah, that's a great question. What are you passionate about, if you don't mind me asking you?
So I'm studying bioengineering, so I'm really interested in innovation in health tech, especially artificial organs with diabetes and stuff being a big issue.
So that's your passion, right? So healthcare is huge, and then you add AI stuff to that, I mean, it's just huge. So I think, personally, what I would say was, so that question, it's a great question. I think there's no right answer. I think it depends from person to person. It's very relative. So I would personally say your starting point is exactly where you mentioned. And I mean, there's so many things that you could potentially do. But I think I would again like to emphasize on the fact that it could be anything. It could be a differentiation based on some innovation-related, tech-related, cost-related. It could be anything. Customer, it could be anything. However, once that is sorted, I think the most important thing is that you're really passionate about it and that you feel strongly about the success of it. Because at the end of the day, in the initial days of a startup, you're going to be the CEO, the chief plumbing officer, the chief accountant, everything, right? And your why needs to be so strong that when on days where you feel like everything is crumbling, you know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, and that keeps you going. So you really need to feel strongly about what you're doing, and I think you're very passionate about healthcare. So I would personally start there, and just take it from there. Like don't pressurize yourself. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I echo that. Essentially, you'll when you stick with the problem long enough, you'll know it's the problem to be solved, right? In my case, I wasn't even looking for a problem. As a part of my international business bachelor's degree, I spent a lot of time studying abroad as an exchange student. And the biggest thing, apart from, of course, the adrenaline rush of traveling and making new friends across different countries, is also living and breathing in different consumption economies for up to 6 months. A whole new set of brands, a whole new set of products to experience. And I just realized that it was becoming increasingly difficult for me and my own generation to discover and transact on these products and use them. And it was just a culmination of all these experiences that got me thinking about how is consumption and shopping going to change for my generation. Because it hadn't for the last 15 years, right? E-commerce as an experience had stayed the same. We were scrolling up and scrolling down, checking out about 4 steps and receiving our product in 2 days. But it needed to change. So that the problem kind of came to me. And then, of course, shopping is something I was passionate about always. I think post getting the idea, that's where staying at it is important, what we discussed, idea to belief to conviction. I'll tell you personally, I did a lot of validation. I spoke to a lot of founders in the consumer space in India, asking them if this is where I should be and if this is what I should be doing. One of them was the founder of India's largest D2C meat delivery service. And now I'm talking sustainability. I'm talking to someone who's delivering meat to the home, right? But he told me that, Ishita, before Singapore Sovereign Fund, Temasek, invested in them, the first thing before they even came to the table, they asked for an ESG mandate. And he said, are you asking me for an ESG mandate? I sell meat, for God's sake. So that validation essentially helped now then make that idea into a belief. And then, of course, there's no looking back thereafter. So I think the problem will come to you and you'll know when it's the right problem to solve because you'll just stay at it. Otherwise, I think as this generation, we have such short kind of, our focus tends to diverge a lot. Given we have so many options, if it's not the problem to solve, you'll move on, is what I believe.
My answer is slightly different here. So, of course, I agree that conviction has to be yours, idea has to be yours. But I'm a firm believer in failing fast and pivoting faster. Now, when I say fail fast and pivot fast, I'll give you an example. EV is the most spoken business in India. So either you're a car manufacturer, or you have a EV charging station, or you're trying to do something around EV. Now, suppose you can't make it in your healthcare space, say you uttered diabetes. Now, diabetes research is going on for the last 25 years, and you want to be a part of it. It may take another 25 years. Do you have that much time? Okay. So what you can do is go in and around the supply chain of your problem. First, try and address, give yourself a time frame, say 1 year to 3 year, 1 year to 5 year, whatever. But at the 5th year, pivot fast. Go around the supply chain of your healthcare issue and make a business out of it. So I'll give you an example. I can't be a part of EV system because I'm not a car manufacturer. But can I do recycling of batteries? My friends have made it big in life. recycling plastic. A friend made it big recycling metals. Why can't we recycle batteries? You know, a lot of jeans is made out of recycling plastic. Who had thought of that? So maybe I'm not a cloth manufacturer, but can I make jeans out of plastic? So there's enough and more business in and around in the supply chain. So that is my advice to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we don't have time for any more questions, unfortunately, but two really important takeaways: finding the intersection of what you're passionate about and what the world needs and the why, but also having value in failing fast, pivoting, and learning constantly. So with that, we heard some excellent insights from our panelists in terms of what we can do through the medium of innovation, entrepreneurship, and sustainability to transform from being extractive to being sustainable, to transform from being divisive to be equitable. And I would really like to thank Ms. Ananya Birla, Mr. Gautam Shroff, and Ms. Ishita Sawant for sharing their rich experiences and informed perspectives with us today. And thank you to the audience for listening attentively, for your interesting questions. And I hope that we can see more zebras coming up, which is basically unicorns, but that creates social impact. So thank you, everyone.